New research shows that young women who are out earning their male counterparts feel a little embarrassed or ashamed about it. Now, this is something that kind of strikes close to home because I've experienced so many friends who have, tried to hide how much they make or tried to minimize their success just so they don't make people in their lives uncomfortable. Well, in 2015, and this is a pretty incredible stat, 38% of American wives actually made more money than their husbands. Now, for those of you who are like, you see that? See what the feminists are doing? It's important to keep in mind that just because they're making more money than their husbands doesn't mean that they're like swimming in cash. Right. The economic downturn in 2008, we're still feeling some of the ramifications of that. And so a lot of men lost their jobs and are still trying to find their way in the workspace, whereas women are usually working, like mid-level jobs. They're not like super wealthy and the guys are making nothing. So don't get that twisted. So what's interesting though is that Ashley Ford, who works for Refinery29, looked into this by talking to a bunch of millennial women just to hear what they think. And here's what she says: they feel anxious, even resentful. Unlike the traditional trajectory of men who earn more or are sole financial providers, most of these millennial women either believe out-earning their partners is temporary or lament the idea that it may not be. Ford summarized a University of Chicago Booth School of Business findings saying that in their sample, dissatisfaction increased and could lead to divorce once a woman started to earn more than her husband. So there are some negative ramifications to it as well. And I have many hypotheses as to why, but I want you guys to kind of jump in.
Listen. If I'm pissed that I out-earned my fiance. Like, I'm angry because I want her to earn more than me, so I don't have to work as much. Do you know what I mean? I want that to happen.
That's because you're confident and you're not an insecure man.
Oh yeah, no, I am also super lazy, so it would help me. I know that's not what we're talking about here. Yeah. I know that's not the issue. That's just my personal experience. I get it, because the norm is that, when you watch Leave It to Beaver, the guy goes off and works and the woman stays at home. And it is weird. It feels weird to people, I think, because it is different from what they've seen.
I think that a lot, like society for a very long time has told men that the only worth or only value that they have is their earning potential, which I have never bought into. I think that's complete BS, Absolutely. Right? I think that there's so much more to a person. Forget gender for a second. There's way more to people than how much they earn, right? And so I remember having a conversation a long time ago, way before I met my husband, with one of my mom's friends. And I was telling her about my ambitions and what I wanted out of life and all this. And she's like, oh, you want to live in this neighborhood and buy this kind of house? She's like, well, you're gonna have to marry a rich guy. You're not gonna be able to do it on your own, right? And so she's like, just stop wasting your time with these guys who aren't gonna be wealthy. And like that notion, that is part of the problem. That is why so many men will feel bad about themselves when they shouldn't, just because their partner's making more money than them.
Yeah, but right? I will say that like in a very super white suburban cul-de-sac where I lived, there was a moment where my neighbor pulled me aside and was like, just saying this kind of thing, like jokey thing. It was you can marry more in a minute than you can make in a lifetime.
That's exactly true, but you also marry someone that you don't love just so you can.
Well, sometimes you find both. Some rich person you can love, and maybe it's because they're super rich, but I love money, so by the transitive property, I can love someone who has money.
By the way, real quick, let me get this out of the way before we continue on. The resentful stuff that comes about isn't just for men. I don't want to just point it all on them. The women start to feel resentful as well. And so one of the reasons why is because, look, things are luckily evolving and changing when it comes to child rearing and taking care of household duties, but still a lot of households rely on the woman to do all that work. And so if the woman is earning all the money or the majority of the money, and then on top of that has all the responsibilities in the home, well, then you start to grow a little resentful. So women stated that as well during these interviews.
Because some men don't want to. So I agree with you about the whole worth thing. I think also there was a period a few years ago where there was so much propaganda telling women that the more successful they would be, the more the potential for them to be alone. I remember Newsweek did an article, and even Essence magazine did an article that said if you are a woman of color and you're over 30, you are and you're not married, you probably will never get married.
Wow.
So the constant propaganda that's always being piled on women, there's so many things that we have to do. We have to overachieve. We have to be submissive to men. We don't want to bruise their egos. We have to take care of a home. We have to have a job. And now we can't make more than the guy because we don't want. Those are the things that are always being told to women. And I'm not saying that that the general population of men are perpetuating this, but I do think that it is a constant theme of all of the things that women got to keep up with all the time. And I'll tell you, if millennial women are feeling this pressure, imagine the generation before them where it was unheard of a woman.
Absolutely. I love that you brought that up because so my husband's Cuban. I don't know if you guys know this. I talk about it all the time. But in Cuban culture, much like other Latino cultures, there's this machismo thing going on, right? And I've experienced it with a lot of Latino guys. And with Christian, it's not a problem, but I definitely see it with some of his elders. And it's kind of incredible, right? Because it is a very old school way of thinking. And I think that guys in younger generations are not like that at all. I think that they realize, hey, you know what? We do need a dual income household with this current economic situation. It doesn't make sense anymore. You can't even have a single earner in the house. You need to have a dual income household at this point for the vast majority of people, unless you're like in Silicon Valley making the big bucks.
Right. So this whole thing of like the woman, how she feels about making more than her husband, the tiptoeing around it would be kind of implies like, men are strong. Men need to feel strong, so don't hurt their feelings.
Yeah.
It's like, well, then you just said men have like feelings that can get hurt. It paints men both as strong and very weak at the same time.
I just think more of men than that, right? I think that some guys might be insecure about it, right? But I have so much more faith in guys, and I have faith that they're not gonna have their egos bruised just because temporarily, maybe not temporarily, their partner might be making a little more money than they are. It's not the end of the world. Look, it's a partnership. That's the thing. You shouldn't think of a relationship as this competitive thing where you're competing against your partner, whether it's a man or a woman. Let me just say something. When you're in a long-term committed monogamous relationship and you're living together and you're planning on being together for the long haul, it doesn't matter who the hell is making the money. It feels good. When that direct deposit comes in, I don't care if it's from Christian, I don't care if it's from TYT, I'm happy. Because we're able to pay our bills, and that's all that matters.
Young Turks now has over 6 billion lifetime views. You know who did that? You did that. We're now larger than CNN, ABC, you name a news network online, we're larger than them. And you built all that as everyone scoffed and didn't believe. And here we are, guys, thanks to you. Build independent media together with us at tytnetwork.com/join.